So paid advertising has become so expensive because there's no change in the supply of prospects and clients, but everyone can produce advertising at scale now. And so all the costs per clicks are going up. And here's my hot take for this week is software is the new cable, and we're in the great unbundling. I think the same thing's happening with software. We've taken the cost of software down so far. The long tail is going to be much more viable, and we're going to just be spending more on software because like, everyone's going to have like their own little tool, and we're just going to end up paying more. Like customer acquisition is never going to get easy. It's just not. Full stop. Anybody who tells you differently is
Yeah.
lying to you. We're
Yep.
lucky.
Sorry.
Hey, man. Well, it's Quinn with Fringe Lanza. It's been a minute. Dr. Doom.
Yes, you're
Back at it.
back. A day of driving. Nice. Yeah, lots. Actually, yeah, it's crazy. Everything every week seems like
It really
year.
does. So this is, I know we've been talking about this, but you know, the harness, right? Distribution and the harness are the new differentiator, not the model. I don't know if you saw, like, was it GLM 5.2 came out and just crushed these benchmarks at a tenth of the price. We got a couple of headlines here that I thought were pretty interesting. So I was curious, we got Claude Tag was released in Slack. So you can like tag an employee multiplayer gaming with LLMs is kind of the theme there. GTM goes headless. This is, I think a lot of things around this, but just starting to build momentum. Salesforce, right? Notoriously, you got to build your applications for agents, not just humans. And, your stack is the code base. So there's some interesting articles from like Growth Unhinged on like how people are actually doing GTM engineering at scale. And it's pretty impressive. To me, it's still a little bit fringe edges, jagged frontier style, better research for like qualifying customers, better triage up front. So definitely productivity improvements versus peers, but you're not ripping out your AEs in my experience. The multiple reset was crazy. So only CFO talked about 7 out of the 75 public software names beat their 2021 peak, which was the last bubble. Like that was the last. And so software's been taking it. Yeah, it's interesting here too. There's an article on, going from 1 million to 100 million ARR has never been easier, but going from 0 to 1 million has never been harder. And so that's kind of interesting to think about, in terms of GTM. How do you get your first customers? How do you get over the hump? Because now there are so many companies out there doing what it does. Talked about the GLM 5.2 launch from the Chinese firm. I think they're like ZAI. This was interesting. Like you thought LLMs were going to kill consulting, but now we're entering almost in this new golden age because there's just so many companies trying to implement and figure things out. You got the lower cost of building. Someone called it the mom and pop SaaS era. This kind of sucks. Paid breaks, then reforms. So paid advertising has become so expensive because there's no change in the supply of prospects and clients, but everyone can produce shit advertising at scale now. And so all the costs per clicks are going up. And then lastly, there's a great interview on the Big Technology podcast with the Ramp economist. And so they monitor all the data that goes through Ramp. And so it was kind of interesting, from a SaaSpocalypse, he's not seeing it, but he is seeing, like, you're seeing Figma still grow. Attio is consistently growing, which competes with HubSpot and Salesforce, but HubSpot's still growing as well. So it's kind of an interesting paradigm there across like all these different things in the last 2 weeks. So anything stand out to you? Did you even get a chance is Claude in your Slack yet?
Yeah. It's been there for a minute in different forms, but yeah, we have rolled out a few agents. I mean, because before they did the Claude tag, they just had like the Claude in there. But yeah, one cool agent that one of our data scientists just pushed out, basically you can ask it a question that you would in say like co-work, and now it'll just do it in Slack, which
game changing.
But there were 2 things I think on there that I think are closely tied or relevant. You had the tag, and then the Slack is the new code base, or I think maybe Is that what the title was for one of
The GTM stack,
the
like, so the
top?
harness, the GTM stack is the new code base. So you're where you differentiate is that's it's more the harness level.
What was what was the Slack one? I thought there
Uh,
was a Slack one too. I think there was.
that was the Claude Tag one I had, at least
Pull it back.
from me looking at it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, maybe I just read it wrong. But yeah, no, the that one was interesting, and there was some observations or thoughts around everybody moving and using Claude now and Slack, and where it's not like the not that Claude has not that you're like vendor lock into Claude, because you can probably interchangeably like put anyone in the future to do what Claude's doing. It's like, but now Claude knows more about your company where you'd have to retrain others. So now that's where like the vendor lock-in comes. It's not that, you're locked into Claude because, the tokens or whatnot, but now you're locked in because it's basically like a living, breathing,
Everything app.
like, you
It's
know, yeah, it's all that peculiar institutional knowledge that shoving a new agent in won't
exactly.
have.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I was reading through some articles and saw some advertisements for a company called Swan AI. There's Revo. You've got HubSpot, you've got, Salesforce, Clay, you've got Attio, Apollo. And it's interesting because they're either trying to like run agents on top of all these things, to your point, where, keep your systems and then this is the agentic layer, or they're trying to rip and replace, but they're all kind of attacking the same problem. And a lot of it's around kind of like disjoint systems, data, and then lack of context. And so they're trying to inject themselves in there. And here's my hot take for this week is software is the new cable, and we're in the great unbundling. When everyone went to streaming because they thought they're going to save money, and it's like, I'm tired of my $250 charter bill. I got to pay for buy all my sports and the Food Network, and I don't watch soccer. I only watch NFL, and like, I just want these movies. I don't want HBO and Stars. And here we are, right? Everybody saved a bunch of money. They're all the platforms, streaming platforms got their distribution. Now they're monetizing. Now we spend more on internet plus all the streaming platforms. I think the same thing's happening with software. We've taken the cost of software down so far. The long tail is going to be much more viable, and we're going to just be spending more on software because like, everyone's going to have like their own little tool, and we're just going to end up paying more. Like, and I think that's going to be good for the hyperscalers because if you have more software, you got to run it somewhere, so it's more infrastructure. I think the biggest difference, obviously, is that CFOs are going to try to consolidate, but if you're profitable as a software firm, even if you have churn, and these AI firms are profitable, it seems like, and they're running less headcount, like why would you close down? Like, do you need to consolidate, right? If you're making cash flow, so it's I don't know. What do you think, man? Like, you agree, disagree? It's like,
No, I mean that's a really good analogy, and I don't disagree. Very similar to something I was thinking about in relationship to my kids. So like he uses Gemini all the time now. Like he just asks it questions. He's wants to get a turtle, and so he's been talking to it about turtles and how to like raise them and all this stuff. But anyways, but he always says, "Oh, like Gemini told me this," or like I need to see your phone so I can ask Gemini. And then I thought about it from the perspective of like smartphones, and then back to like laptops. So like growing up, and this might date me and you, but like I didn't have like a laptop.
yeah,
Like maybe you had a computer, you had a home computer, maybe if you were lucky. But then as things started growing, like now having a laptop is like almost mandatory. Like everybody just has a laptop and everybody has a smartphone, but it's like an additional like expense. So it sort of deviates from what you're just saying, but I think to your point, but everybody will have AI and they'll be using like kids or whoever will all have like a subscription to, maybe they won't, but I feel they will, because it's like the way he's interacting and asking questions now, it's like like his research tool.
yeah,
But I don't know, but to your point, it's like, it's here and the software is here and there. Yeah. It's an interesting, probably not relatable, but in the sense to your point, it's like cable, like it's there and you're using it, and everybody's going to be using some form of
yeah.
software.
It's interesting to me because you're gonna. How are you? are we going to have massive software firms anymore? Are you going to be able to hit your network effects and your platform effects of a Salesforce? Because now they're surviving, so like the moats aren't as strong as they once were. But if you have a tool and it's good enough and everybody's kind of in there and you have 10 companies and they're all profitable, like, think security is one of the most fragmented markets, right? CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Netscope, Zscaler, Trellix, and they've just never had that level of consolidation like CRM has had under Salesforce and HubSpot. And so I think, kind of like the App Store, there's no, the cost to, build and ship an app now, like, everybody can have their own Tabata timer and everyone's happy and everyone makes money. It's just kind of a new paradigm. Why should I standardize on the same, app? Because there's no real network effects, there's no real synergies there. So unless the software industry wants to consolidate, but the competition, I think it's, what it feels like? It's almost like every, used to have AWS and all of our consulting partners, and everybody was starting consulting partners and they were getting acquired by a CDW or merging. Now it feels like the consulting firms slash agencies are almost turning into small SaaS firms. So they're, because now you took a framework, a repeatable process, and that was what you charged for. Now you just vibe code it on top of it, and you charge $20 a month, $200 a month, and oh, by the way, you get 20% off if you book for a year. It's fucking, and it's everywhere, dude.
Yeah.
And I guess my point when I come back to is the cognitive burden of like evaluating all this new software is just creating more friction in the sales cycle. So it's going to be interesting, how many CRMs we have out there that are just stuck at 100 million per year.
Yeah. And it goes back to like, how many people do you need on a team?
Yeah.
Right. Like
we were talking before it started. It's like, thanks, but no thanks. Quick desktop will help me now. I don't have time to explain your job to you and do mine.
Yeah. Yeah. So is it just, the whole, like, I think I sent you the one podcast from YC with the 40-year-old entrepreneur or something. I don't know what the age of
the domain expertise.
Little ageism there, but like the way they frame it is like, these 40-year-olds have domain expertise and now have the capabilities and power to spin up a 5-man shop.
Well, I was just, I shipped you those articles on those other firms and one of them got acquired. And it's just crazy. You start a newsletter, you start a podcast, create some tutorials, post on your LinkedIn, get a button, book a strategy call, and you go. And there's enough people trying to figure shit out that it's real. So it's interesting to me because I listened to, I think it's GTM Now had a good podcast on kind of this paid advertising specialist. And he was just talking about how the cost per click has gone up through the roof. Like I was talking about earlier. And so there's kind of an interesting space because you can produce so much content and now you can do an outbound dialer. Like, it's so funny to me because all the outbound agencies or companies are saying now you can go and touch everybody, but if you scale it out and then fire all your SDRs and your AEs, but if everyone's doing the exact same thing, there's no differentiation. It has to go up a level. That is inherently what makes sales so challenging and go to market. And so this fucking peanut butter panacea is just irritating to me. And so, yeah, now the ROI of outbound has gone down. So now people are shifting back to paid because at least your input and your output, right? Because it feeds back into the CRM. It's kind of interesting to me that the CRM may actually finally fulfill its job of like the true brain of and heart of your operations. Because now it's easier to take all your texts from your calls and emails and update that and feed in the systems and get better at data hygiene, which is, a lot of unstructured in sales. And so, but then because there's so much demand for prospecting and a AI slop advertising, Meta can now I just invested in Meta. Meta can now go and charge 10 times more because they have people trying to, fight for the same dollar, the same eyeballs. And so it's like, it just shifts. Like customer acquisition is never going to get easy. It's just not. Full stop. Anybody who tells you differently is fucking lying to you. We're lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another interesting trend that I heard about was Clay Ads just launched, and there's an article I think we talked about a couple weeks ago or a month ago where let's say you have a product-led growth company and everybody's signing up with their prosumer personal emails. You have no idea who they are, but then you can use these third-party data providers, automate some of it to essentially like do matching or, look it up, extract their name. Let's say it's like first out last at, Gmail. Anyways, I don't know exactly how they do it, but they're able to scrub the list, enrich the data, and then say, oh, of these, 10, or let's say 100 prospects, 5 of them are actually at, company XYZ. We should go talk to the company XYZ and try to, get like a 25 seat business, right? Because we know people are already using it. They're evangelists. We have the data on their product usage. Now we just need to go talk to the right customer. So I think Clay Ads is kind of emerging just as a really well-known brand in that space where they're actually doing the bridging and enrichment of trying to identify the personal emails and associate them back to the business emails. So whatever you're doom scrolling at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, you'll now get advertised to on a Monday morning at probably, let's say 9 a.m. since you didn't sleep well that weekend, which I think is kind of cool. Not that I want it done to me, but it's kind of the mecca of marketing, right?
It is. Yeah. No, that is interesting. Yeah. And I mean, that's what teams want, or what you want when you are spending and trying to like retarget or, break into finding the retargeting base.
Yeah. So I think Meta's going to do well, actually. I think they're going to continue to have spend. They also talked about AI overviews is kind of killing search, but Google's still growing revenue. I don't know how they're growing their ad revenue, apparently brand listings. So like if you're a company and your top competitors, you'll actually pay for your domain to show up next to your competitors. And someone's saying, oh, I have to scroll down 6 ads to see my own company's website when I type it in. That sucks.
No, went on Meta though. Like I should probably go invest, because I think about like, how do I discover new things? And it's either one when and this may be like date me, but one when I'm like on Instagram just scrolling, like that'll feed me like the new supplement or whatever. Or I'm now just straight up going into like ChatGPT or Claude and asking like, oh, what is the best CrossFit shoe for running?
Yeah.
But a lot of that is just garbage right now currently.
Is it? It's hookahs, apparently. Everything's hookah now. Or hookah.
They have too high of I like lower drops. So I'm old school, like CrossFit, like barefoot type, like 0 drop
I
or
use
minimal.
Noble. What do you use?
I was using Noble. I switched to TYR, just to give them show them some support, because they've gone out and like are sponsoring and invested a lot into like CrossFit. So I was like, all right, gotta keep them, support them if they're investing in like this niche nascent like sport.
Is CrossFit gonna like keep going, man? I feel like the games have been taking a beating. Maybe just I've been out of it too long.
I mean, I'm excited. This year's the 20th anniversary, so it's going to be pretty like they're going to do 20 events. So 20 events for the 20th anniversary. So should be pretty exciting. But yeah, it's coming up soon.
That's cool. Yeah, what's interesting is because the barrier to entry on knowing how to use more technical tools, the Clays of the world, the Claude Codes are now actually, you have GTM people kind of stepping into this space like us, right? Doing whether it's video editing and Claude Code. I'm actually got like, so this is a cool thing. I've been trying to figure out how to get some data on LinkedIn and what's successful, just like based on what we've been talking about, because just so much of it is kind of mimicking the style, whatever is trending. I just find it really difficult to, get keyword research that doesn't suck. Every time, like, it's obviously a user error, but also Google. I remember when Google, like 10 years ago, Google like basically obfuscated some of like their really detailed shit. And now it's kind of directional. And so you have to pay SEMrush or these people. Anyway, so there's like vidIQ for YouTube. So I was checking that out and they want fucking $20 a month, and I'll probably pay it to them. But I'm just like, Claude, like, how do I get some of this stuff? You recommended this tool and it's free, and it sucks that it's free. She said, "Oh, you should go to your GCP account because you have one, and just use the YouTube API. You get 10,000 queries free a day." So, so I got a script, and I threw my API key in my project and variable in env file, and then it went and it looked up like all of the different top videos and around GTM and sales. And yeah, I'll ship it to you afterwards. So it's pretty insightful. It had, the alias of the creator. I went and looked at pages. I looked at like, oh, I subscribed to some, kind of check it out. And so I was like, hey, this is, it's a CVS file or CSV file. It's like, I want this a little more interactive. And so now I'm asking it to basically build like a vidIQ because I didn't know YouTube API was, free or cheap. And so now I'm just going to have my own little rinky dink tool fucking around, find out on, my own keyword research for YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably productize that too. Just turn it into a
Yeah.
product. Like, I wonder what the API subscription costs, and then you could like subscribe to it and then open it up as a product for
Google,
others.
so many services. I mean, Google's unique, right? Because it has the workspaces, it's got YouTube, it's got Gmail, oh, it's got GCP. So AWS, right? We have had, I don't know, the first 12 months you had a bunch of free stuff, and then your account kind of it graduates out of the free tier. Google just has some perpetually free stuff. Just like, how many queries you want to have. I mean, I don't even know if I've paid money to not Vertex, like Google AI Studio or whatever. You just go in, you sign up, you create an API key, and it's like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Yeah. Now that you point out, they do have a bunch of like, yeah, it is. I pay for Gemini, so that just comes with a lot of other
Yeah,
stuff.
same.
But yeah,
It's worth. I like it. I think it's worth it.
but that example that you gave, I think, is another just great example of like, I mean, honestly, you could probably turn that into like a quick product. Somebody else out there looking for the same, to solve the same problem that you had, and now you're just packaging up the Google API
Yeah, I mean, it's
and putting a wrapper and like on it, and it's gonna automatically like pull up interactive like dashboards for
so
people.
that goes to the story on just the golden age of consulting. So there's a little bit of, I feel, tension here because one has to wonder. So there's this hypothesis that a CFO was saying we did token maxing to ourselves. So I promise I'll get back to the point of consulting, but it basically said our bills on Anthropic are insane, Codex, whatever, and now we're allocating per seat usage, and it's funny because I've seen some extreme examples, but then the averages are like $1,000 a month per user for an engineer, which is like nothing. And so it's obviously skewing, like the top 1% is driving like 80% of this usage. But the CFO basically said our investors came in and freaked out on the SaaSpocalypse because a lot of these are builder companies, SaaS firms. It's like you have to invent, you have to try to, it's totally FOMO, like no budgets, just go figure it out and tell us what you're doing. And so immediately people started testing things out. They didn't know what to do, so they just said more is better. And now we finally had the pendulum come back, within 6 months, and they're like, now we're trying to put controls around it, but can you really put the bad behavior back in the box, right? You basically just said go do whatever. And so his point was this was kind of like back into the COVID era when everybody said, you're about to enter a recession, you need to cut back, you need to like be prepared for no sales. And then software went on this like epic rip of like, success from 2020, 2021, I think, or I forget. Yeah, it was 2023. It was maybe 2023 was the bust. Yes, for like 2 years. So,
Yeah.
and so this time the investors and all the VCs are like, what are you doing? Go like FOMO, FOMO, FOMO. And then, it blew up in their face. So, anyways, to tie this back to the consulting, it's like you have all these different people don't know how to extract the value. There's not a real proven run book. Even the venture capitalists outside of the infrastructure layer, which is all the hyperscalers and NVIDIA and the memory and all the market, like their markets are through the roof, right? They don't know where the value is getting accrued. But, there's this arbitrage opportunity for people that, to your point, the domain experts and GTM can come in, learn pretty quickly and help people actually implement these things. So I think they're saying like for every $1 on quote unquote LLMs, there's $6 of services, which is not crazy because I mean Microsoft used to say that about their software, but it's kind of interesting, how this was supposed to kill knowledge work, and now people with high agency are making millions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. It's facts. But again, I think it comes back to like the high agency, because there's always going to be the people. And I think about the analogy, like back to like the Facebook, birth of Facebook and ads and whatnot, even with Google, is like, it killed ads. They say killed, what is it? Madison, like, Ad Street in New
Oh
York, like
yeah,
killed all the New York
Madison
ad
Avenue
agents.
Avenue.
But at this, yeah, is it Madison Ave? The
Yeah,
Mad Men, whatever it's like supposed, but at that same time, all these high agency people who either worked in the ad industry or had like peripheral knowledge went and spun up all of these like support services or ancillary products to support ads
yeah.
and printed money. So to your point, like, yes, it's going to displace people, but the people with the high agency are going to take it and run
So
with it.
this, I'm going to see if I can articulate this effectively. So this is kind of the basis of the consulting golden age. So it's let's see, it's Ronald Course in reverse, which was paraphrasing here. Like the purpose of the firm was to find, brief, and supervise people and talent and expertise, and then be able to package that and then sell it, right? Or implement it for themselves that helps drive the outcomes. That what it's saying here is AI actually collapses the cost of finding, briefing, and supervising said experts. So the rationale for payroll breaks, right? Because why would the firm do all this? And now the value actually shifts to the individual because there's no, the complexity goes away. So you could look at it and be like, oh, why did the firm doesn't need people anymore? But you got to look at it, its point. The point here is the purpose of the value of the firm is to do all that. So it's actually the firm goes away, not the people. And now the people can do what the firm did with AI. And so the expert led work gets 40% better and 25% faster with AI is what they're estimating. So I thought this was really compelling. So the solar operator now rents the production or the capacity, the workload that used to cost $15,000 to $25,000 a month, right? This is shit we do all the time with our research, with our building. I'm coding right now, and you know now it's $200 a month, $100 a month for my Claude Max subscription plus some small hosting costs, right? And it's interesting because then you also, the solo operator could do all these things, make 10 grand a month, maybe 30 grand a month. But the opposite, the Gartners of the world, that their whole value prop was to like hone and maintain and distill all that expertise. That's all Gartner charges for is the research, and then like bringing people together is shed 70%, I think, of their market cap is what it's saying here. So it's kind of interesting, this whole which side of the jagged frontier are you on, is because one side has leverage and the other one doesn't. So you want to be on the side with leverage, which ironically is the individual if you have the agency. I thought that was fascinating.
That is, I mean, I think all these are just like signals.
To what? Quit?
Yeah. To
Just
just
do
do
it.
it, right?
Nike this
Just,
shit.
just
Oh man. All right.
you
Well,
know,
I'll end on this. Just some interesting signals because it's hard to get. So, who survives the cull of the SaaS apocalypse? So, this is from that ramp data. So, that was interesting. Attio is a AI native CRM. They're seeing them grow really rapidly. Figma, everybody thought Figma's dead because of Claude design. Figma has been consistently performing on the ramp data. You also had DeepSeek. I don't know if DeepSeek reverse distilled. Nobody does, but it's kind of interesting how the frontier is collapsing. And you've seen, and when the S1s come out for OpenAI and Anthropic, how freaking sustainable is this going to be? I don't think there's any argument that LLMs and SLMs are going to be everywhere and anywhere, and we're going to benefit in productivity at this point. It's just like, what is the value going to accrue enough to the model makers for it is someone gonna have to buy them and subsidize them? Because Microsoft and Amazon and Google will happily just buy OpenAI or Anthropic, right? Like, and just be like, all right, thank you, next. And then also, so this is the counterpoint. Salesforce and HubSpot are still growing. Like they're the market dominant players, but they're still billing, they're still being used. And I think this goes back to my quote unquote hypothesis. We're at the great software unbundling, just like cable, and we're all going to be paying more for software in the next 3 to 5 years. There's going to be more software, more specialists, just like there's freaking Twitch and YouTube and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and Netflix and Paramount Plus and Hulu and all this garbage that takes our attention. We're going to have more software to suck, hopefully, our productivity gaps away. So I just thought that was, so if you're in software, don't fret. If you're an account executive, AI is not taking your job. Like, just double down, get the best out of it, be high agency. And there's this kind of hypothesis out there that the era of the $1 million rep is about to become normal. And so just the people that figure it out are going to make the money. So that's my soapbox, and I'm sticking to it.
I agree.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Come by next week. Check us out. Newsletter on Substack, podcast everywhere. And if you want to see our smiling faces, YouTube.
Peace.